All right.
All right, tell us who you are.
Hey guys, I'm Surprise Birthday. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Super Evil Megacorp. So if you look at the game, you divide it into the in-game and also the app and all the systems outside of it. Captain Nito looks at the game, and I look at the app and the systems.
Right, so you're here for a very specific reason.
Yes, yes.
So this past week or so, matchmaking has been a little bit questionable.
That's right.
You
that's
mind
right.
telling me a little bit about what went wrong this weekend?
Yeah, so we actually had a bunch of issues with matchmaking and ranked in ELO and VST and that
Right.
whole system of defining how good players are, showing people how good you are, and then matchmaking based on that.
Right.
And like 3.1 did not go out well. It's below our standards. You guys deserve way better, and we are sorry for that. That did not go well. So I'm here to talk about some of the things that we did, some of the changes that we made over this weekend and also yesterday, and basically answer a bunch of questions that we've been seeing repeatedly come up from customer support primarily, our first channel for what people are asking about, but also Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. Some common questions have come up.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to kick things off,
Yeah.
so you're talking about VST, ELO, MMR, all this stuff. What is all this stuff? What is VST? What's MMR? How is it calculated? Like, what is it?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the most important number for anyone is their ELO.
Right.
The ELO is a system borrowed over from chess to measure how good players are based on recording a long history of wins and losses from one player to the next.
Right.
So that is the most important number. MMR is actually a colloquialism. It's used in exchange with ELO a lot, but MMR is actually just a temporary number that we generate in certain situations, like when you are in a party.
Right.
So when you're in a party, we don't want to just take everyone's average. Sometimes when you're in a party, some people would form a party where one person's really, really good, and then one person's actually really, really low ELO. He's actually a really good player playing on a Smurf. So we would say actually for this party, we think that all three players are probably really good, and the third person is just pretending.
Right.
So MMR is just a word for an adjusted ELO that we use only during matchmaking, but it's never recorded in your account. So you don't have an MMR, you have an ELO.
Okay.
When you're in the matchmaker might calculate an MMR just for that one session for other adjustments that we might make.
Okay, so what you're telling me is based on my past performance, who I'm playing with, all that stuff, my MMR, what the matchmaker views me as, is actually not the same number as either what's displayed in game or my actual true skill ELO.
Yeah. So your ELO is in the background. ELO is actually working in all game modes. It's in casual. It's in ranked. It has to be even in game modes like casual because the players are actually the skill difference is so large that people cannot have fun with each other if we just didn't use ELO for even casual matchmaking. So it is everywhere in the game. The difference is that in ranked in casual we hide your ELO. In ranked we show you this thing called visual skill tier or VST.
Right.
Or I call it I just call it skill tier really.
Okay.
So the difference is that your rank is actually soft reset every season.
Right.
So it is oftentimes lower than your ELO every season, and that's because we think that every season you should have to reprove to
Yeah, maybe
us
stop playing for a while.
and other players because the meta is shifting. You should have to reprove that you are good at this game.
All right.
But we don't drop you to zero because because it simply isn't true.
Right. So that's actually something very big that's come up. We had the rank system come out in 3.1. Why didn't we drop everyone to zero?
Okay, so let's first talk about why we didn't set everyone's ELO to zero, and then we'll talk about why we didn't set everyone's skill tier to zero or 1. So by zero, I mean actually 1200. Everyone starts at 1200, so you can think of that as zero if you'd like.
All right.
But or the beginning, the center. So everyone starts at 1200. From an ELO perspective, we cannot put everyone at the middle because it would result in good players crushing noobs for like 2 or 3 weeks straight before
Not
things
ideal, I imagine.
sort themselves out.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's actually during early access we can actually directly measure how much does your skill in 3v3 count towards 5v5.
Right.
And what we found is it's basically 1-to-1. Like if you're a 2000 plus ELO player in 3v3, those players during early access are going to climb, and they did climb up to 2000 plus.
Right.
So everyone's 5v5 early access ELO looked a lot like their real 3v3 ranked ELO. So that tells us that as
Still
different
translates
as it
over
is,
pretty effectively.
it translates over incredibly well.
Right.
So we know that if you're really good at 3v3, you are absolutely going to crush new players, and that's going to be a terrible experience for the new players. It's going to be a terrible experience for the okay player who has to be paired up with a new player who's facing up against you because the matchmaker sees everyone as 1200 and is just matching people
All right, fair
randomly.
enough, fair enough. So, given that we aren't starting people at 0, how
Yeah.
are we deciding to seed them?
Yeah, so one more thing. So we don't start your elo. So we do transfer your elo over.
Hmm.
The reason we also didn't start your skill tier at 0 is because if you, let's say you're actually 2000 elo and
Right.
we started your skill tier at 0, you're gonna climb super fast.
Hmm.
And what's gonna happen is your buddies, let's say who started playing a week after you, you've climbed up so fast that you can't play with them anymore
Right.
because of the party span, which I'll also talk about in a little bit why that exists and also the changes we made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we hop into that, then you can tell me a little about. We have the rank system. We allow parties of 1, 2, 3, or 5 people.
Yeah.
So why not 4?
Yeah, so that's 4-person parties are allowed in casual, but they're not allowed in ranked. And this is just an experience actually, well, we haven't been 5v5, but we've seen this occur over and over again with other 5v5 MOBAs, especially on PC. It's a pretty toxic experience.
Right.
With 4 people, the 4-man party can basically dictate a surrender.
Hmm.
For example, unilaterally, and oftentimes the last person, like it's really rough being that one person singled out. You don't have a say in surrender really, and oftentimes you feel very discoordinated from the rest of the team in terms of what they're doing, and it's generally a very frustrating experience. And we think that if it's true in other MOBAs, it's probably going to be true here too. So we decided to just go ahead and disable that because it's pretty bad.
All right.
Everywhere
Sounds
else.
good to me. Sounds
Yeah.
good to me. So we've made a bunch of changes already, but first off, let's talk about the party span. You mentioned that we originally had you can party with people one skill tier away from
Yep.
you, and we have made some changes to that. So what are those adjustments, and why did we make them?
Yeah, so the party span is currently set to, it used to be 1 tier for forever.
Hmm.
We have just yesterday made it 2 tiers. So if you're tier 6 gold, you can party with someone as low as tier 4 gold.
Okay.
Now, originally it was set to 1 tier. It's set to 2 tiers right now because 5v5 is new, and a lot of people didn't get seeded into the rank that they expected. In
Right.
fact, a lot of people were very close to each other in 3v3, find themselves a little bit further apart. So we want to make sure that people can play together right now.
Hmm.
It's a temporary change. We may revert it back to 1 once everything shakes out, because as you can imagine, there is a problem with a tier 4 and a tier 6 being in a party together,
Right.
because you're going to face opponents of closer to tier 6.
Hmm.
Just because when parties like this form, we're always wary of the tier 4 actually being a tier 6 player smurfing on a tier 4.
All right.
Any kind of span creates matchmaking and experience problems. Also, your teammates might be frustrated, right? If you're 6 and a 4, you're gonna have 3 other strangers match with you. They might be a little bit frustrated with the tier 4
All right. I think that makes a lot of sense.
that's on their team.
So you mentioned we did make some changes yesterday. What other changes have we made?
Yeah, so actually we made a whole bunch of changes. So first of all, we fixed an issue with early access players who were actually quite good at the game, not placing into only tier 4
Oh, okay.
in skill tier visually. Their back end elo was still correct, but they were placed into tier 4, even though they ought to deserve to be placed into tier 8, even at accounting for the fact that we drop your skill tier every season a little bit.
Hmm.
So we have fixed that one. And this is a big issue because it caused basically the appearance of, it caused really, really good players to basically be matched into low tier.
Okay, got it.
We also fixed probably the scariest problem, which is if you lose the game, you drop 100 points
Oof.
first. And then later we found another issue where if you lose a game, you were dropping 40 points, which is unusual. Like
Right.
that should be extremely unlikely, but that was happening a lot more than it should have been. So we actually, right now, we're confident we have fixed all the cases where you drop an exorbitant amount of points.
Okay.
If you are very, very new to the game, you should be plus minusing about 20.
Hmm.
If you're very, very high tier, it goes down to like plus minus 10 and then sometimes plus minus 5, but
Okay.
40 is a very extreme number that should not happen.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So-
Are there? Well,
Yeah,
sorry.
so we set the party span to 2 tiers for now.
Mhm.
We're still monitoring that to make sure that doesn't cause any major problems.
All right.
But do know that if you are partying with people and you have a wide spread, so if you're tier 6 match with some tier 4s, the matchmaker is going to think you're closer to tier 6 than the average of 6 and 4. So we're not going to treat you as a 5. We're going to treat you as something close to 6
Okay.
if you do that.
Right. So if you do party up with people who are greatly below your tier or
Yeah.
higher than you,
Yep.
then we'll take the highest into account.
Not the highest, but something close to the highest.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it.
Yeah. We also found an issue where Matchmaker was actually just unnecessarily holding people in the queue longer than we should. So it is faster now.
Okay.
Not by a huge amount, but it is faster now. Another thing is separate of Elo and Matchmaking, the 3.1 client itself has some crashes
Okay.
and disconnects that would cause, if you didn't experience them because you have a high-end phone or you got lucky, then it would still affect your allies or enemies, causing unnecessary AFKs.
Right.
So if you are having those problems, actually, I think so do update the 3.1.1.
Okay.
That update, I think, is now mandatory.
Mm.
But if you haven't done it, you need it to play the game now, and that solves a lot of the crashing. We have one last remaining issue that is unfixed, but it's not super high priority because it's not ruining the game for anyone. Is
Okay.
some players in early access early on are able to walk out somehow with like 5,000 elo,
Whoa.
which is
Okay.
ridiculous because like the highest ever known was Druid hitting 3,000.
Right.
So that's, I mean, that's clearly wrong. I know but it's not. To do that, you already have to have been very good in the first
Right.
place. Like you have to have climb above 2,000, maybe even 2,400. But we were just giving you way too much.
Okay.
So there are no bad players getting 5,000. Vainglorious gold.
Mhm.
5,000.
Interesting. Okay. That's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
That being said, is there any last words you have for the community here?
Yeah. So one more thing I wanted to talk about was how we did the elo seeding.
Okay, yeah.
Actually.
I feel like that's pretty important because a lot of people get placed into places where they don't quite expect to, or higher or lower.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the questions is like why. So I answered why we didn't start at 0 because your skill in other game modes actually transfer quite well.
Right.
Even then, we actually transferred less than 1-to-1 from your other game modes. So
Okay.
even though we found that 3v3 ranked elo like pretty much it was 1-to-1 correlation, the way we did it is if starting center is 1,200. We only look at the difference from 1,200. So how much you gained and lost since you started at 1,200. And that means let's say you're 1,600. It means you've gained 400.
Right.
So let's say you're 1,600 in 3v3 ranked. We said that we're going to take 80% of what you've gained or lost and migrate that over.
Okay.
Or if you've played a bunch of 5v5 casual, we'll take 70% of what you've gained and lost and migrate that over. So, and then 60% of 3v3 casual, and then for Blitz and Battle Royale, only 40% of it matters. So it only has basically we think it only has a 0.4 correlation
Right.
to your actual 5v5 skill. So 3v3 ranked is 0.8, 5v5 casual is 0.7, 3v3 casual is 0.6, and then the other modes are 0.4.
So would you be taking the highest value, or
Yeah,
would
yeah.
it be okay?
We calculate each one, and we say which one gives us the highest number. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Whichever
Cool.
one's the highest, that would be your 5v5
All right.
ranked elo. So that's how we did that. So there's basically a gradient of like how close do we think this game mode feels like 5v5, and how correlated is it? So if someone's high here, are they also going to be high during early access?
Right.
So that's how we did that.
Cool.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
Yep.
And as always, if you have any issues or you run into any problems, be sure to let our customer support know.
Yep.
Just send us an email, send us a message, and we will try to take care of it as quickly as possible. We know there's probably a couple things out there that are still needing to be fixed, but we're working on it.
Yeah,
So thank you, Survivor's Birthday, for coming on.
Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoyed draft.
All right.
All right, thanks
Go
guys.
have fun out there. Have a good one.